Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I'm Tony Gerdeman, here as always with Tom. How's it going?
Just when you think you're done talking about the transfer portal season. No. Now we have to talk about the impact of the transfers from the transfer portal season. Transfer portal season, there's only one of them every year. It only lasts 2 weeks, and yet somehow I just get the feeling it's going to last all year long.
The impact lasts all year long. It's just like, you get dumped with snow. Is that the end of it? No, you've got to deal with it. And so now, Tom, we're going to shovel the driveway of all of this transfer portal talk. And today we want to talk about, in this episode particularly, the impact of the offensive transfers. And the four guys with the most impact, that will have the most impact, without a doubt. This is done. And we're going to rank them from most to least. And since we're only going like the top four, even that least guy is still going to have more than, say, that fifth guy or that sixth guy. And especially when you look at the Ohio State offensive haul in the portal to this point, they brought in 4 offensive players, a kicker, which you could put on the offensive side as well, and a long snapper. So really not a great deal of offensive help, but some good guys. Tom, I'm going to start here. I think the guy with the biggest impact this season on offense is going to be receiver Devin McEwen. He is the most experienced. He's, 40 catches his first 2 years each year, and then, 60 or whatever this past year, or 70, whatever. At a position of need. They don't have a Z. He can play Z. He is exactly what they're looking for, exactly what they need. Why wouldn't he be number one on this list? If it's not him, Tom, then this is going to be a pretty good haul.
Yeah, he would be the guy that I would have number one on this list as well, where he fits the role that, it's Johnny Bravo. He fits the suit, right? Like they need a Z, they need a speedy guy. Nothing but timely references on this show. Nothing but modern, extremely relevant to the kids today references on this show. He is
Dynamite.
Dynamite indeed. Yeah, he is exactly what they needed for that Z spot. I think he is going to be at least good and at least relevant on offense. And so yeah, he would be the number one guy. And I think it is almost in my head a 3-way tie for second place, because I can make an argument for either wide receiver Kyle Parker or either of the 2 tight ends, because in terms of high ceiling, who could be a 800-yard receiver, I think Kyle Parker could absolutely be a 800-yard receiver. The 2 tight ends are definitely going to be starters and, top 2 guys. So I think you can make a decent argument for either of them, but I am going to go for Kyle Parker since I've already started making the argument for him. He's someone who has already played at the power conference level, which gives him a little bit of a leg up on McEwen. He is someone who Cortez Hankton, the new Ohio State wide receivers coach, has coached for multiple years, knows him, knows exactly what he's getting. He will obviously be able to pick up what Cortez Hankton is teaching pretty quickly and probably be able to have a little bit of a leg up there in terms of, if they're doing some slightly different stuff with wide receivers this year. I think that the skills are there, the tools are there. It just feels like he's someone where the floor for Parker is 400, 500 yards. And that's sort of the floor to me if he's healthy. And, he is someone who you could easily see him with 750, 800, maybe 1,000 yards on the outside. In terms of, what a really incredible season could look like for him. So I will go with him as number 2 on this list.
And his versatility, his ability to play either inside or outside, I think makes this a solid pick as well. And also, you just said it, if he has 400 or 500 yards receiving, who else, are we expecting Jacoby Jackson to have more than that rushing? Are we expecting Mason Williams to have more than that in receiving? Not that that's the sole way we measure a tight end, but I think that does give Kyle Parker a leg up in terms of he's going to be out there and be a target and a weapon, I think, more than anybody else. So I'll concede that one, Tom, just for the sake of the commenters, because when we did we did a grading the offensive additions, and people were like, "What about the kicker? What about the kicker?" Understood, right? Like, but that that's special teams. We don't always acknowledge special teams here. A plus. We'll see. Now, like again, you can bring in kickers and spend money on them. Doesn't mean they're going to hit the 52-yarder when you need it. That's even in the NFL. So if we want to talk about kickers, I could put Connor Hawkins here, or I'd probably go with Mason Williams at this point. I'll do that. I'll go with Mason Williams, tight end from Ohio, who, if he can be what Will Kazmarek was, and frankly, an underrated receiver that I think Will Kazmarek was, lost a few games in 2024 to injury, was at times a better downfield target than Max Clare. There are times where you'd see a throw downfield to the tight end. You're like, oh, you're finally using Max Clare. And it's like, no, that's 89. That's Will Kazmarek. So I wonder, can we see some of that with Mason Williams in this offense? And I think he's here for a reason. They need experience. They need a guy that can do both. And I'll go with Connor Mason Williams here. All of the last name, first name stuff, it's just got to stop.
Yeah. Is it Jack Johnson or John Jackson? I don't know. It's a mystery. Yeah, I think this is a good one because if you're going to look at this just in terms of, the stats, yeah, the wide receivers are going to have the stats. If you're going to look at this in terms of snaps, who's going to play the most snaps on offense? I think Mason Williams is probably pretty high on that list because, he's not a carbon copy of Will Kazmarek, but it's pretty hard to avoid making that comparison. And if he can be Will Kazmarek, you saw how much Will Kazmarek was out on the field. He was not, even when they're rotating a ton of tight ends, he was still out there quite a bit. And the snap count was pretty high for him last year and the year before that. So, yeah, I think Mason Williams is sort of a sneaky pick where the stats aren't necessarily going to show it, but he could have a pretty big, when we're talking about the most underappreciated Buckeyes, he may be one of those guys we're talking about this season. And then, you said 4. I think we have to do 5 here. And we're leaving the kicker out again because this is an offense show. But, I think you could make it a decent argument for either Jacoby Jackson, the running back transfer from Florida, or Hunter Welsing, the tight end transfer from Northwestern. I am going to take Hunter Welsing here, because I think he's going to be closer to the top of the depth chart. He may be the top of the depth chart this upcoming season at tight end. And Jacoby Jackson is, I think he's going to play a role, but he's, if Bo Jackson is in that room, I don't think Jacoby Jackson's going to be the number one running back in that room. So I'll take Hunter Welsing. And the caveat here is just if he can stay healthy, because he has missed a bunch of time. He was healthy last season and turned into a really, really good tight end. I think he had 83 yards receiving or something like that against Michigan for Northwestern last year. This is not an Ohio State offense that's going to put up an 800-yard tight end receiving season. But if he can have the Cade Stover type year, Max Clare type year, which for Max Clare felt almost a little disappointing because it was a drop from his production with Purdue. If Welsing can put up 400 yards receiving as a tight end and be a solid blocker for Ohio State, that's going to be a really, really, again, underappreciated, sort of thankless job, but someone who could be a really key part of this offense. So I'll go with him, but yeah, and frankly, I think him and Mason Williams are pretty interchangeable on this list in my mind.
It will be interesting to see if they want to use one of these guys more as the Max Clare, and if that's Welsing, what he can do, because you're saying 40 catches or 400 yards. I mean, that's 448 was what Max Clare put up this past year. G. Scott, 253 the year before that. If they can get G. Scott numbers out of their second tight end, I think that's a pretty good haul. Although, he's the second tight end in the portal. Where is he on the depth chart? I think that's going to be an interesting thing to find out as well. But as you said, he's got to stay healthy, and it's something that he did last year. Hasn't really done it other than that. Jacoby Jackson, you mentioned him. Like, it'll be interesting to see what his role is. Is he a touchdown vulture, that sort of thing? If so, then that impact rises. Can he win the backup job? And as I have coined, him and Bo Jackson can operate as Jaboby. If that can happen, then of course that impact rises as well. But yeah, I think it's okay to have him where we have, and just further confirmation that 2026, the year of the tight end.
Yeah, man, I'm just trying to in my head design the Jackson X Jackson Jaboby T-shirt and try and figure out how well that merch will sell. Will it be extremely well? Will it be better than extremely well? There's only one way to find out. Well, remind me, we need to buy jaboby.com before we also we needed to settle on how we're spelling Jaboby before we release this show. But no, I think there's certainly a possibility he carves out a role that ends up higher than 5th on this list. I just see Bo Jackson is pretty clearly running back 1 right now, and I think there's a possibility you see either of the wide receivers getting a starting role, either of the tight ends getting sort of a starting role. I think it's harder to see Jacoby Jackson passing Bo Jackson, but we'll see when everyone gets on the field this spring.
Yeah, there you go. So certainly some impact players coming to the Ohio State offense. We ranked them for you because it was requested of us to do. And who are we if not followers of what people ask us to do? So there you go. That will do it from here. If you want to hit the thumbs up on the video on YouTube, we would appreciate that. Hit the bell to be notified. Subscribe to the channel if you've not yet done so. And, of course, you can continue to find us at BuckeyeHuddle.com. That will do it from here. Thank you all for tuning in, and we will talk to you all later.